the shots with Amazing on the side of Team Solomid. That's Freddy's job. Team captain over on the side of SK Gaming. And something we'll have to note for Team Solomid throughout the entire tournament is a Nidalee ban that's going to have to go down.
Well, they banned Nidalee in 14 of their 14 NALCS playoff games, and they're not going to be picking it up for Worlds. I think that's pretty clear. That is just a ban used every single game, a definite weakness in TSM's overall strategy they're going to have to overcome.
Yeah, and it's an absolutely needed one because Freddy would quite happily pick that up. Kale also banned out, and that you may be thinking is towards Jesiz or Freddy, but no, it could well be nRated. He's played as support 3 times throughout the season. Zed, of course, focused towards Bjergsen. The big one for me, though, is Syndra going to be banned? SK have let this one through before, despite the fact in Europe they know the champions in that mid lane, big players like Froggen, like Peke, can play it well, just like Bjergsen can, but they're happy to go up against it. Aatrox for targeted towards Freddy. That's going to put Freddy uncomfortable, and there is the Syndra ban.
Definite target banning. However, I think the big reason they banned Syndra there is they would have loved to ban Alistar or Maokai, but if you're not going to be able to control them, you just have to be able to trade them back and forth. Dyrus picking Alistar, I expect Maokai to come back on the other side.
Ooh, awesome pickups to start. The cow does get through in game 2. As we go through the group stages, Freddy and Gilius now to pick up. Eyes on Gilius as well. Consider him to be an impact here to come in for the team if he can continuously play as Svenskeren did. Like they said, a little bit of counter jungling, but will he fall into that style?
It's a fair bit of pressure. He was just in a pretty pressure-packed situation, actually, on Unicorns of Love. He qualified for the LCS. He ends up picking Kha'Zix, which is something Svenskeren actually was 6-1 on the playoffs with, so he's really just trying to fill his shoes, not change anything strategically for SK. They didn't rely on jungle shot calling to begin with. Most of their shot calling comes from Freddy 1-2-2 in the top lane, so maybe they can just pull off their normal strategies here.
It does, of course, mean that Lucian has snuck through 17 bans against him. Amazing in that mid lane. Of course, back in the Copenhagen Wolves in Europe Spring, he was one of those top champions as well. So he's managed to rock this champion throughout the entire season, be it in Europe or North America. And against the European team, it should work well for him. Alongside him, of course, Nami picked up for Lustboy, someone that's come in for TSM and absolutely done incredible things.
Yeah, no surprises on TSM side, just picking the big-time champions. A surprise on the SK side, though. Yeah.
Locking down the Sona. Very nice coming in for nRated. They said he's got to make his champion pool bigger.
All right, so we've seen a little bit of Sona play. It's been patchy throughout. Some Chinese teams are actually playing it. LGD Gaming. Obviously, nRated is also a type of person who used to rely on Sona occasionally. It is the new Sona updated. If they're able to group up and if TSM doesn't have a lot of AoE, it's a little better. However, they're playing it against Alistar, Nami, and then whatever else TSM decides to throw at them. It is a vulnerable pick in the laning phase, a squishy champion, but if Sona does get ahead, I very much respect her power. I'm not that surprised to see her at Worlds.
I am surprised to see Mundo picked up instead of Maokai in there, so that's something that has switched across for Freddy. Going to see how that works out. Of course, Ahri's still on the table, but we're going to wait to see whether these Yasuo does get locked in for Bjergsen, and of course, WildTurtle on Tristana, no surprises.
That team synergizes amazingly if they lock it in. Everybody can prep Bjergsen for the knockup of Last Breath, and it is locked in. A lot of top-tier picks coming from Team Solomid.
One thing that TSM likes to do frequently, instead of counter-picking matchups, is to pick entire team comps. And this is very similar to the Yasuo compositions they ran throughout the regular season when they would go for Yasuo. The only difference is they would run Lulu in the top lane, but they have a monster in there with the cow as well. So every single person on that team can contribute to Yasuo's ultimate, giving Bjergsen every single option he wants as far as which target to go for, and really trying to set him up to carry.
Going back to that Mundo, these only been once Freddy had played that the entire summer. So it's definitely a turnaround, and we wondered that with the bans coming in, the Nidalee, the Aatrox, targeted towards him. Has that put Freddy in an uncomfortable position? Dyrus up against him. We'll see how it works out for him.
It's true, one of the big stories that we need to follow here is whether or not Dyrus can neutralize Freddy and kind of take him off of his game. As a shot-calling top laner, if you're struggling in your own lane, you're not going to be able to make very many good initiation plays. Also, Mundo himself isn't a very good initiator. It will be kind of difficult for SK to find the right type of plays throughout the map.
Well, with the match about to get underway, we'd like to turn our attention to Twitter. Tell us who you think will score first blood. Use the hashtags TSMWin or hashtag SKWin. And of course, we'll send your tweets to @Esports. We'll check them out as we get the game underway. Here are the teams, here are the champions. What do we think here?
Well, a little bit of sustain in the bot lane is the one thing that I think. Not necessarily a huge lead here for Nami. If they can land a few big-time bubbles, it will be very interesting to see whether nRated can stay alive. I think that bottom lane is potentially the weak point. Potentially the weak point of TSM. WildTurtle has struggled massively in laning phase near the end of the North American season, and he needs to pick it up for Worlds.
And here we are, Game 2. Coming out of Group B for this one. TSM versus SK Gaming. As we said, Gilius stepping in for Svenskeren throughout this. And we are going to see the game underway.
Well, one thing I never thought I'd hear in Taipei.
There you go.
Is the TSM chant. Clearly the home favorites here.
Perhaps.
Yeah. Taiwan, who knows?
Coming out right away. So one thing that's always intrigued me about SK is they're the team that is all right with taking breaks, but they'll come back a little weaker than they usually do, and even did so coming into Worlds, but it's kind of a stop the burnout factor for them.
It's one of those teams, we talk about their sports psychologists frequently, but during this summer split, when they were slumping, when they came out of the slump, Candy Panda was very upfront about it. He said, we slumped because we were slacking off. We weren't practicing as much because we didn't want to burn out before the end of the season. They started grinding near the end of the season. They made it back into the playoffs. They gave Alliance a great run in the semifinals. Many people think SK was actually the second best team in Europe after playoffs. Of course, all of that changes with the Gilius substitution in the jungle right now. But it definitely has to be noted. Maybe they're going to be more fresh than other teams.
Yeah, and the Gilius substitution is obviously a big point in this one. But you would say, despite the fact he's a fresh-faced kid coming into this one, thrown into the World Championships, completely wouldn't have expected that. It was a challenger team not too long ago. He has performed brilliantly on Unicorns of Love. You cannot deny it. However, it is a very different team. That's all about supporting Power of Evil in the mid lane. Can he do the same with Jesiz? Jesiz is a completely different player to Power of Evil. Power of Evil will carry games, and Gilius will support him. And I gotta wonder, with Freddy being the shot caller, whether he's just gonna pull him towards that top lane or maybe down the bottom.
Well, you usually get the regular lane of Jesiz kind of farming, being by himself. He didn't get a lot of attention from Svenskeren either.
Yeah, hopefully for SK, they have enough confidence to let him make his own decisions. Because as soon as you start bossing a jungler around, you completely neutralize them as a player.
Absolutely. So down the bottom, immediate aggression. Will we see some level 2 plays from either of these teams? TSM playing it cautiously. Back towards the tower, Candy Panda shoving the wave in alongside nRated. It's been a long time since we saw Sona down in this bottom lane.
I'm ready for it. I was watching a whole bunch of LGD games, and their support would often pair it with Graves, and they had a lot of success in the laning phase. The damage output, when they get both people in that new Q snuggle zone, they can get a whole bunch of damage when they decide to go for a trade.
Giving out all the hugs to start off the game. Looks like pretty on par for both junglers here as they start. We may get treatment for the bottom lane from both if they decide to go straight there. A lot of pressure in this game. We talk about pressure for Dyrus and being able to perform here. Did quite well in the playoffs for Team Solomid. Also talk about Jesiz, who's talked about his confidence kind of being shaken. And he's quoted himself as that.
I have to really wonder what's going to happen in this mid lane. Bjergsen is just so good in the mid lane. And obviously, Jesiz is not the most hyped mid laner. He just kind of has to get by. He's usually pretty consistent as well. This is a tough one, though.
Yeah, looks like Bjergsen's trying to set him up here, trying to force him off to the left-hand side. Amazing, ready and waiting to go, but doesn't look like he's taking the bait right now. Jesiz going pretty deep on this one. He's in trouble. Can they get him down? Manages to dodge the Sonic Wave. Ignite was also used. Heal flash by Jesiz. Summoner spells burnt on both sides, but Jesiz is safe for now.
Gotta say, my boy's very impressed when an early level 3 Yasuo can get off that attack. You already have the wall or the Q up. They know it's coming. Jesiz had to blow the flash.
Really nice move there by Bjergsen. Obviously fairly aggressive. If Gilius would have been there for a counter gank, it would have been rather dangerous. Amazing also burned his flash. So at the end of the day, it is a 2-for-2 summoner trade. Not actually that great of a thing for TSM.
Bottom lane still quite back and forth, more pressure in the mid lane. Jesiz is going to get a bit of attention from Gilius, so it's going to be different for them, but he is still going to play it safe and not show that Gilius is there. Good control by them.
This is tricky, I feel. Bjergsen well aware of the fact that if Jesiz is being that aggressive, that far up the lane, he knows there is Gilius waiting in the wings just off the side there. He calls in the reinforcements, amazing waiting there. Doesn't look like we're going to see some play, but Jesiz may well get caught out again here. Pulls defensive ball, will get knocked up. Here they go, Sonic Wave does catch this time around. First blood is coming. It's amazing that gets it for TSM.
That mid lane jungle synergy brought all the way over from Europe. Definitely starting to work out even more for TSM. Every single game, they seem to get better. Bjergsen now level 5 and should punish Jesiz with no summoners.
And it's great. History repeats itself for TSM. Ooh, top lane Dyrus getting a little roughed up there by Freddy.
I talked to a lot of people about Alistar in the top lane, and I was actually one person that was of the opinion that you can manage him, especially with a Mundo. If you can somehow sustain through him, Doran shield Freddy with a lot of health regen as well. You remove his ability to out-harass you with headbutt, and then you start turning around with more damage in teamfights. It definitely feels like Freddy is ready for this one. That's why they didn't pick Maokai, because they wanted that matchup.
And one thing that always catches you out as a player is, of course, the fact that Alistar, without the ultimate, is squishy in all things. You think you're this big, giant tank. Without items, you can be handled. Freddy returns, teleport used by both top laners to come back in there, and they immediately go straight back at it, going straight in with that headbutt.
Freddy almost certainly has health regen runes in that top lane. Currently with the Giant Spell, he's at 49 health regen per 5 seconds. He's really going to be able to withstand that Dyrus headbutt, and it's basically a neutralized farm lane. There is no bully potential from Dyrus in that lane anymore.
Amazing. Looks like he wants to get Freddy a little bit of aggression here in the top lane. Jesiz trying to keep himself safe there, and it looks like Freddy's gonna have a little bit of trouble. Amazing, slowly waiting on the outside. Gilius nowhere near this one.
They're trying to go before Freddy has his ultimate, but he's still pretty tanky.
Is he gonna be tanky enough? Flashes out, Sonic Wave catches on, but he can just walk away from this one, as you mentioned, with that giant belt on him.
Yeah.
Is no problem for him. One thing that has happened though, Jesiz forced back to lane early on there. Had to go and respect it, goes for the cloth armor.
Fantastic pickup there by Freddy. Almost nullifies the fact that you can dive that Mundo before 6 and get him down. I like it a lot. Back down to the bottom lane. Candy Panda is really using a lot of that mana to get himself in range as WildTurtle and Lustboy continue the harass from this lane that has come so far this season for Team Solomid.
Both are very close to level 6 right now. You can see they're sizing each other up, seeing who can land it. Will it be the wave? Will it be the crescendo that starts things off? Of course, Dragon could easily follow. This is the right time. The junglers are up in the top half of the jungle, so it's both really a straight-up duel between these two. nRated taking some damage. It's TSM that you would feel are in the stronger position right now, but that crescendo in the right point can be critical.
They still have WildTurtle on Trist. If they can get him out of the laning phase unscathed, it's a huge boon for TSM. Even when he was getting beaten in laning phase, he was still having good team fights with Trist, and they're going even actually down bottom.
Gilius back to the mid lane, just for a cross, making sure Amazing isn't trying to make a return pass, but it looks like TSM is happy with that first kill they got here. It's going to definitely give them a spike if they go for that first fight, but they're going to have to be careful. It is a great fight team coming from SK. More pressure to the bottom lane here. No shots on either turret yet, but you can just see how dominant WildTurtle is on that Tristana.
Tricky stuff in this bottom lane. Level 6, imminent between the two. Junglers are down in the lower half of the jungle, and Dyrus, he is on a warpath.
This is the Alistar dive. He can't do anything to Freddy, so why not go mid for Jesiz?
Right into the wall, we'll stop him up for a little bit longer. The synergy comes in from the Mad Cow. Jesiz ignited, Jesiz is down.
The only way Jesiz lives through that is if he flashes while Dyrus is trying to headbutt him. He does not, he gets displaced. Bjergsen ults on top. It is a systematic, well-executed gank by TSM.
And the blue also being stolen away by Amazing. He took his own, now he's going to take theirs, and that's a big problem for Jesiz. He needed to get hold of that. He needs to try to keep up with Bjergsen. You can see the CS difference is starting to become huge between them, and he knew that coming into this game that Bjergsen versus Jesiz was going to be a critical point. And now we're going to get a 3v2 dive on bottom.
It's in a ward, though. Gilius will try and counter gank this one, but Amazing goes in.
Oh, not quite going to land it. Can he? Panda. Gilius tries to react, comes across, catches the crescendo, and Amazing. And that is the first kill for SK. That was right on the point, the edge of the crescendo, but nRated landed it.
What a spectacular shot right there by nRated. Doesn't even have to burn flash. Definitely well practiced on Sona. That's exactly what SK needed to just stay survived in this game. Gilius has been completely outmatched by Amazing up until that point where the ward of the bottom lane and the crescendo of the bottom lane is able to help him out against the enemy jungler.
Another Giant's Belt coming in for Freddy here. Looks like he's got to keep his pants up a little bit more. This lane, definitely going to be a long fight lane if it goes down to it. We see the Triforce already coming out here for Dyrus. Things getting crazy up there.
Yeah, and I wonder if that Amazing play would have pulled off. That would have been a dragon for TSM, I feel, but it's definitely put stops on that one. It's delayed it for a while. We talked about SK's weak laning phase. It is very much showing right here. The mid lane, of course, big, strong, dominant force. WildTurtle on Tristana. If he can get going on that ahead of a Lucian, it is a win in lane phase regardless. The top lane, big difference in farm, but Dyrus has already roamed. He's already got himself an assist.
Everything TSM has used has been towards Bjergsen, and that's really their power point right now. He's got a 2-level advantage onto Jesiz. I suppose SK is trying to come back by just building multiples of the same items, double giant spell, triple longsword. At this point, they're still in a little bit of trouble though because Bjergsen is very powerful.
Could be difficult. However, if Amazing continues to make aggressive plays, it will give them small windows to come back. Will he check the brush? Possibly not, but another ward goes down. They're pre-warding these to make sure they have consistent vision throughout the jungle.
Gilius spotted out by that ward of TSM. There's the Culling being used. WildTurtle healed straight up by Lustboy. No problems there. Double buff still on Candy Panda, remember, from that earlier gank by Amazing. That's about to wear off. Gilius, a little bit of counter jungling here, but Amazing. He's creeping around the back of Jesiz, but he's spotted. Jesiz,
if this turns into a 2v2 of any kind, TSM would come out on top, which is why Jesiz has to run away. However, Gilius gets a little bit caught.
Wards everywhere, and they're going to be able to give some protection to Gilius. He's forced to flash over the wall. Tough game for him. He is getting warded out everywhere.
It's going to be a tough series. He just got thrown into the World Championship, obviously, and he is struggling a little bit here.
Even the wards they're placing on the top side that aren't seeing Gilius is alerting TSM of where he is on the map. If he hasn't crossed the top side, then he's in the bottom. Let's make a gank here. They're using everything to their advantage, and every lane seems to have a good one of that.
Bjergsen is completely honed in right now as well, and because Amazing is just setting up camp right there, there's nothing SK can really do to come back here unless Bjergsen makes a mistake. He's completely landing all the skill shots, keeping the pressure up, and the ward coverage is immaculate around where he is right now.
Yeah, completely manhandled. There is a ward spotting this one. They know that this dragon is going down. I don't think they're going to do anything about it other than get a timer. You see SK sneaking in, but immediately the call's been given back away. You're never going to get close to this one. Gilius was not there. So, first dragon, big objective for TSM, gives them a fairly substantial gold lead. Just 12 minutes into this game.
They're playing very well, very controlled, and it's kind of the way TSM always wants to play. They focus around Bjergsen so he can be a playmaker late game. And the biggest thing here is their bottom lane is actually winning.
A lot of praises sung towards Team Solomid as they were boot camping a bit. Lustboy having great play throughout all that practice. And TSM has definitely changed a few things about their gameplay. Getting that aggressive early start, and it's really paying off. 13 minutes onto this one. Not much pressure from Gilius in this bottom lane, and Candy Panda and nRated have been at that turret the majority of the time.
Jesiz absolutely struggled in this mid lane. Still yet to get his hands on the blue buff. Nearly 30 CS behind on Bjergsen. Absolutely has been the focus, and why not? It's well known that he is the weak point of SK Gaming in that mid lane. Completely leaving the top lane alone. Dyrus and Freddy have been on the island untouched, and you know, it's a gigantic tank versus a gigantic tank, so no surprises.
And we can see the overall gold lead here being about 2.5 thousand. 1,200 of that is in the mid lane. So it is just them absolutely picking on Jesiz right now. And I think they're just going to continue this. There's nothing drastic that TSM needs to do. They need to continue to set up some ganks, obviously on Jesiz. If they push him back far enough, then Bjergsen can begin roaming, but they're really just trying to work from the mid lane outwards towards the rest of the map.
And Jesiz is so piecing together his build. His spike will be so far away. trying to get a few items in there, and then Bjergsen coming out so strong already. Has to put in that Seeker's Arm guard. TSM once again towards the blue. Gilius able to figure it out. Looks like they get away nice and clean.
This could well be the first claps we see. And the first big team fight, honestly. This blue buff, is it worth fighting over? TSM, little unsure on this one. They're buying time instead for the mid lane. They are going to give this one up. That means, or are they? Amazing tries to land it sneakily at the end there. Trying to force a smite, I think, from Gilius. They did use it. Jesiz gets the blue, though.
Yeah, that was pretty much it. There's still a lot of pressure lost there by SK just to secure their blue buff. One thing I will say is even though SK's not buying a whole bunch of wards, they got pretty good value in the wards they are actually buying.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh, indeed. Everybody swarming the top lane here. Freddy using his ultimate early on this one, so it's going to be wearing off. Flashes it. They're getting what they want. Blocking the business there as he gets out.
Buys time in the mid lane, though. We'll see whether they can push out or whether they're going to get punished for it. That's the question. Crescendo on the WildTurtle. He's going to get locked up, and is it enough? Great disengage from Lustboy. The wave, the Aqua Prison, everything lands, and TSM just walk away.
Pretty sweet move there by nRated using Crescendo from the Fog of War, though. Definitely catching WildTurtle a little bit out of position, but they're able to get out thanks to the fantastic play from Lustboy.
As we said, getting those praises sung, and he's showing it here on the stage as well, keeping consistent play up. That gold lead isn't getting much farther away, so SK has been able to stave off the advantage TSM has now, but Amazing is getting everything. Bjergsen's not needing blue buffs. He is getting big. Level 10 to Gilius' 9, still getting warded out in his jungle. TSM on a good path right now.
One thing that has actually worked well for Jesiz is the fact that he's built into this. You just saw there, while he did get a little bit of damage on him from Bjergsen, it didn't do as much this time. He's got them Seeker's Arm guard. It has delayed his build. You can see he hasn't got that Athenes yet, but he's built correctly. Hasn't managed to stick to his path, built against what he needs. And it is going to be a simple game of delaying for SK Gaming, honestly. They need to get a lot of items on Jesiz, but the fact is Bjergsen is going to have those 2 critical items before he gets there.
And I feel like Freddy is just hoping he has enough armor to withstand a late game WildTurtle. As far as TSM goes, especially with the Trinity Force Alistar, they are a full attack damage team. So armor stacking actually will work very well against them if they can get to reasonable levels of gold difference. At the moment, TSM is still outpacing them a little too quickly, but if this was an even gold game late and SK itemized appropriately with a lot of armor, they would actually have an item edge in that sense because their defensive items would be much more efficient.
Such a spike right now coming in for Team Solomid. Gilius gets hit up. That's just the Shiv and the Q. A little bit of pain being delivered there. That can also come from WildTurtle. These guys far and ahead on items, a minute on Dragon, and they're going to look to pressure that quite nicely. Forced to back off. Gilius heads back to the jungle. Looks like he's cleaning up what he can. Still warded out on the top side. They are not making it easy for the newcomer.
I can't tell whether that was gutsy reactions from Gilius to not flash there or simple shock. It was just like, I've just lost half my hit points, guys. I don't know what happened.
He had Orianna right behind him, so
yeah,
obviously Bjergsen was just being a little bit safe. It was still real scary, though. Sightstone on Lucian very early as well. Lizard Elder. For a second, I thought it was a Sightstone Kha'Zix. But no, that's just a normal build for me.
Gilius can't get next to a brush without getting hit. Jesiz, Bjergsen getting his own ultimate in. Oh, the Sonic Wave doesn't quite hit, but the safeguard comes in. Whoa. He cleans it up with the last Q.
What a slick move there by TSM. I thought they were leaving him a little bit extra alive, knowing he'd still have a shockwave to suck him back in. Amazing, making it out just in the nick of time, barely taking any damage.
Oh, Crescendo does not land this time around, and that's the Aqua Prison followed by the bubble. Brilliant play, but nRated gets away. WildTurtle not going to get turned around. Panda wants to pursue, but Amazing's coming in around the side. Can he get back up towards him? Comes around the backside and ready. Sonic Wave doesn't land. No reactions. Bjergsen comes in. Dyrus teleports in.
They're so dead.
5-man pylon in the bottom. SK Gaming in all sorts of trouble. Freddy comes down to join the party, but he's simply just another death for TSM. That's a double for WildTurtle. 3 for 0. Fantastic play by TSM.
Sometimes when you're under a turret, you just have to give up. At that point, the teleport was completely wasted. TSM had a monstrous advantage. There was no escape, and SK just makes matters worse.
Wow! Gilius going down. Jesiz in the wrong place at the wrong time, and the cow comes in to give him the what for. Picking up
the Dragon.
This train is rolling down the tracks way too quick for SK.
Something about TSM games, they play slow, they play slow, and then they explode. Seemingly kills all around the map. Obviously, this one was a crazy, crazy fight. The shield surprising WildTurtle at the last second, getting him low, but the collapse from TSM was just fantastic. Amazing gets in behind them. Almost the fact that he was missing these spells just made matters worse because it delayed the inevitable. Warding to allow Dyrus with the turret dive. Freddy, really bad teleport right there. Did not even have his ultimate, just teleported into dive. A 5-man dive with the damage reduction from an Alistar is easy pickings there for TSM.
And honestly, I completely question why on earth they decided to engage Bjergsen back in that mid lane. When Gilius came back in, they already saw the damage he was doing. There's simply not enough ability power for Jesiz to put that shield on and return the damage back to Bjergsen. Simple, easy double kill for him. And now, when a Yasuo is at 4-0-2, you have big problems.
And Bjergsen as well, giving the shot caller lead in the game. Top lane indeed, trying to lock down once more onto Freddy. He should be all right on this one, backing off. Like you said, Jat, sometimes you gotta leave that turret.
This turned into a stomp. Very quickly. 9,000 gold at 20 minutes.
They took advantage of Gilius. They did.
That's not a goal lead to come back. They took advantage of everyone.
This is true.
On SK, it really feels like the bottom lane stood true. Freddy, he was trying to pull a stalemate lane, but he could not control Dyrus' roam. And every member of TSM has contributed. No one more than Bjergsen though.
Good lord, Freddy in trouble. He's going down. Flash is out, but that's not going to be enough. You cannot survive the damage that Bjergsen has. And that's with a Randian's Omen, Giant Spell, and a Chain Vest. He still gets shredded. Dyrus turning on towards Candy Panda. 2v1. Has he got the damage? I think Candy Panda must have gone deep on towards the tower to have this much damage.
He's got that Triforce move speed.
He's still going.
There's so much that the other team can do with this. Dyrus is holding Candy Panda and nRated hostage right now as TSM runs amok on the map.
Oh, Gilius going down. WildTurtle finds himself a target. Dyrus bullies out two. Both Candy Panda and nRated. Middle lane is wide open. It's only Jesiz that's holding ground, and Bjergsen fancies it. Maybe he's going to sniff for it. No, early Baron.
Why not? Why not? Everything's going on for them. 10,000 gold lead. They built a Bloodthirster on Yasuo, which you've seen from a few players, actually. Yeah. I'll let the analyst desk cover that one because I want them to talk about Bloodthirster on Yasuo. More lifesteal, a little bit of a shield, less solo potential, but this is just TSM turning scrim results into absolute domination.
That's a really good way to put it. They're at the playoffs. Reginald said, play it like a scrim. Let's see this one more time.
Yeah, Gilius.
What the hell was he thinking?
You made a big mistake right there. WildTurtle is really strong. Did he even evolve? That's just
forcing yourself to make
tilt
plays.
Play. I mean, that's a Kha'Zix that has evolved his spikes and his leap, trying to solo an isolated target. Maybe if he maxed and evolved Q, maybe then he could take down WildTurtle. If not, he has no chance.
And it's going to get harder and harder. 3 static shifts across the board. Every lane is going to be pushing at max speed right now. And TSM is not going to be stopping. SK finally putting everything back into the middle. Freddy still loves to go for the 1-4, so he's going to try and keep Dyrus at bay. But it's only going to be too long. It's not going to be too long before TSM's right in the base.
Could we legitimately be seeing the first time TSM make it out of a group stage at Worlds? They are looking strong here, honestly.
Let's not get too far ahead.
No doubt about it. Well, technically you could argue they were in the quarterfinals at Season 2, but that's because they got a direct seed there. TSM, though, legitimately have come to this World Championships with the best chance they've ever had, and we're hearing absolutely great things about them from scrims.
They have 2 games today as well. There's 3 different teams in their group. TPA, they will not play today. Starhorn Royal Club, they will. And they're going to have a lot of momentum after this one because they have put on a spectacular performance here. Just looking for more. They got 3 static shivs. They got a 13,000 gold lead. Make that 13,500, and there's no reason for them to stop here.
It's going up. They're definitely going to need the Swiss bank soon on this one. Inhibitor turret's going to be going down. 24 minutes. We're coming up. Finding the game. It could be SK going for broke here. They do deter Team Solomid just a little bit. And Freddy calls himself in. Here we go. The fight. Turtle gets hit up. Will they be able to keep it going? Everybody's jumping in and going for broke this time. Gilius gets hit up, thrown down in the box, and they go for Freddy towards the fountain. He's going to go down. They're aced in their base at 23.5 minutes. And the surrender for Game 2 at Worlds Group Stages comes in from SK. Team Solomid takes the game 15-1.
What a a way to start their journey towards the World Championship. Obviously, they're playing against a wounded SK Gaming that was not together in this one. But they definitely knew how to finish that time. That is the fastest, most decisive game I have probably seen from TSM since they formed this roster for sure. And to do it on the world stage in their first game is spectacular.
You gotta think, Bjergsen, we talked about him, is the pressure on him, the shot caller, the man of the moment for TSM, and by God did he perform on Yasuo this early on. From the very get-go, he looked like a man on a mission.
I don't even know how to finish this one because the game got out of hand so quickly. We were like 14, 15 minutes in. SK was doing all right, you know. They were just hanging around thinking maybe Mundo can get to a point, and then it was over.
I gotta focus on the point that TSM adapted to that misplay so quickly. Amazing went in, and they didn't do it ever again. They didn't make a wrong call after that. They were in the game, and they were ready to just take the win. Knowing they had the advantage, TSM played as they usually do. Loco Doco coming around, the team says the 6th player of the team, and he's been paying off for him.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic.